Just want to welcome you guys to our Farmers Market Square workshop. We have a couple housekeeping things, and then we have a message from our city council, and then Lee Downey's going to speak on behalf of the city administration. So I'm going to introduce Cynthia Newbill. She's the councilwoman for this district, and she's going to say a few words on behalf of city council.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Wow. I know it's a beautiful day outside. Good evening. It is an absolute pleasure to welcome you to this community conversation this evening. And I just really want to thank you, because you could be doing any number of things. Like I said, it's been a beautiful day outside, and you have chosen to be here, to be a part of this conversation, to be a part of this shared visioning about what our 17th Street Marketplace will become as a truly extraordinary destination location. And so I am not noted for being brief, but Jeannie did say, can you be brief? Because I'm excited about all things 7th District, East End, City of Richmond. And so I do, again, just simply want to say welcome. Thank you for taking the time to be a part of this community conversation so that we can develop a shared vision for what this great space will become in our city. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Lee Downey, our director. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm going to be very brief. I'm just here to welcome you to the train station, to our offices. It's a great place to come to work every day, as you can imagine. But just want to say thanks for being here. As Ms. Newbill said, you could be anywhere. You're here because you care about what we're doing. You care about the market. This is a wonderful asset for the city, and tonight's about you, about your input and what you think. And so we're going to sit back and listen to you tonight rather than you sitting and listening to a host of people talking. So thanks for coming. Open up, feel free, and let us know what you think. Thanks.
Thanks, Lee. My name is Jeannie Welliver. I work for the Department of Economic Development, and I love Shaco. I guess most of you that know me know I believe in this place. I think it's one of the city's greatest neighborhoods, greatest assets, and I think it could improve. As many of you know, we've seen this as one of the fastest young, professional, and empty nester community growth in our region, and we think this could be a great urban space. Shaco's revitalization started about 25 years ago when we built the flood wall with the federal government. And since that time, the city and the feds and the state have invested over $400 million in just infrastructure improvements. When you take new market tax credits and mostly historic tax credits, you can see how this place has just come back to life after we flood protected this low basin. Tonight is a process, and let me just back up and tell you how we got here and then where we go from tonight and forward with this space. The City of Richmond, we underwent in 2010 a Shaco bottom and Shaco slit revitalization strategy with the stakeholders and many of you in this room. And from those conversations, meeting with you and listening, we heard very clearly there's not enough urban open park space in Shaco, and that the farmers market was one of everyone's favorite spaces, but most everyone would agree it could use some improvement. We want to know what that means to you. The city has funded improvement, but we haven't funded the design quite yet. We're starting. This is the first baby step of that design. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what you have to say about security, about programming, about architecture, space, shade, sustainability, accessibility, and all of those things. And if you look at the images up on the board, and I'll describe some of them to you as well. The top is Barcelona. It's an open space with wonderful trees providing shade, but that space changes daily. One day it's a flower market, the next day it's an art market, the next day it's a farmer's market or any other market. Outdoor dining, shade, wonderful space, wonderful place. 2 images below just show how bicycles can also help fill an urban space, and some of the beautiful lighting you see on the left over that urban space, I think that's in Germany, just shows how we could probably make it more fantastic through light, art, bicycles, and just open urban space. The farmer's market image that you see below is just to have that conversation about the farmer's market, its continuation, what days, is a market sustainable, how could it be more improved, better improved. Down below you see images of outdoor dining. And that's one of the things we heard over and over was improved outdoor dining in this space as well, and programming it on nights and weekends a little bit more heavily. I'm going to stop talking too. Thank you for being here and thank you for caring. Please, please say what you feel, say what you think. This is your opportunity to do so. We repeat this workshop tomorrow, same workshops, it's redundant, you don't need to come. And from here, we'll circle back with you, have a conversation of where we are in about a month and a half. And then the design starts. Design has not started yet. We hope to reposition this space at the end of 2014 and have it ready for 2015 bike race. That's the last week of September 2015. So that's one of the city's deadlines we're aiming for. So I'm going to turn it over to our consultants. Earlier this year in 2013, we hired BAM Architects, who's now merged with Baskerville. Burt Pennick, Mary Loreno are here. And then we have Project for Public Spaces as well. And they're going to lead the charge tonight, tell you a little bit about themselves, about their organization, and how they carry you through it, making a space a great urban space. So Elena, I'm going to turn it over to you if that's all right.
Thank you, Jeannie. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. It's a great pleasure to be here. My colleague Kelly Farrell is here from Project for Public Spaces, and our colleagues Bert and Mary from now Baskerville Architects. It's very unusual for a city to actually start this process with the public space planners and the designers working together. So we're very excited to be here. We have been in a series of meetings starting, I guess, in July with a lot of different groups of people, and we have some ideas that we've already heard from these series of focus groups. But tonight is a very special exercise. We call it placemaking. We want it to be fun, and that's why you have a little form on your table that says place game. But it's really about evaluating what is existing and coming up with ideas of what is going to make this space comfortable, attractive, active for you and other people in the community. So first and foremost, we want to hear your opinion and your point of view, but we also, especially for the colleagues, professionals, designers in the audience, if you can for a moment take off your professional hat and kind of think of this place as what would I do here as a citizen? So it's all about visioning. There's no bad ideas right now. We're going to go through a sort of a synthesis process, and we're going to come up hopefully with a program for the space and how it could function, which will then be transformed into a design. So very quickly about who we are. I am a vice president and a planner by training at Project for Public Spaces. We're a nonprofit organization, and as our name suggests, all the work we do is planning and design of public spaces. So markets, squares, parks, waterfront, streets, we kind of do it all, and it's very exciting to have this kind of very classic urban square to work in that also has a market. So my colleague Kelly is a market expert, and she's helped many farmers markets around the country, and we want to hear ideas, and we really want to make this market square work better as an urban square, but also as a market, if that's what people want to do. So I'm going to start with some very basic examples, and they're really going to the idea that sometimes we designers and planners focus so much on the physical things that we actually forget about how things work or how they should work. So here I'm showing you Boston City Hall Square. This square, I think this photo is maybe actually older than me. I think it was taken sometime in the 80s. The square kind of looks the same today, but we can also very clearly see the influence and where the designers came up with this. So they looked at Piazza del Campo in Siena, one of the most famous urban squares in the world, and what they came away with was paving and bollards. Well, paving and bollards do not make a square. What makes Piazza del Campo what it is the edges, the activities, town hall, restaurants, terraces. That's what attracts people, not paving materials. I mean, it's good to use good materials, and we want that, but that's not enough. So sometimes we forget that. And oftentimes, we put features that are kind of untouchable. So we've had a lot of conversations already about water. And the quote you see up there is actually from a man named William H. White, who was a mentor to Project for Public Spaces and kind of the reason why the organization started. And it was supposed to be one project, and here we are still working on Project for Public Spaces. But he was the one who said, one of the best things about water is the look and feel of it. It's not right to put water before people and then keep them away from it. And we see this a lot, that we put these like glorious water features, but they're not good for people to be close to. So we want people to enjoy it. We want to give them the simple comforts. As human beings, where our physical needs are really not that complicated. So one of the simple things is like give people a place to sit. And this is another quote from Mr. White, who noticed that a lot of times, especially in like high design architecture, benches are there as an architectural feature, but they're not necessarily comfortable or put in the right place. So that's what we're really trying to figure out. What is the right place? What is the right design? What is actually going to make people feel comfortable in the space? And he remarked, people tend to sit where their place is to sit. Sometimes we just forget. So, we kind of have to make do with whatever's there. And then the other very simple trick to great public spaces is food. And you have a great opportunity here. There's already so many wonderful restaurants. And essentially, if we put out food, people will come in all shapes and forms and ages. And I wanted to show you this because the only person in this photo who is not eating ice cream is the kid. So I don't know what that speaks for the parents. Maybe they're being selfish. But we've embarked on this collective process, working together around the space and working with you to build a vision that's going to actually help us come up with a program and a design that actually serves the community and is really the best we could achieve. So this is kind of what our placemaking process is about, and we're kind of somewhere in the middle. We're in the place vision area right now. I mentioned earlier that we already met with a lot of people and did a series of focus groups. So this is the list, very kind of roughly, of the kinds of focus groups that we've met already. I'm not going to read them all for you, but they're up there. So we've had ideas already, and we don't want to stop anybody's imagination, but we want to build off of what we've already heard. And there is a lot of people in this room I see tonight that have already met with us, and there's new faces as well. So we want to build this and be inclusive and kind of go back into some people that may have more knowledge and experience once we figure out our vision, and kind of trim it down and make it real. Because it's great to have wonderful ideas and a great vision, but if we can't implement it, then it doesn't do us any good. So we heard a lot of ideas and a lot of thoughts, but these are kind of the main points and the highlights. So one of the main things that we heard over and over again was how important it is for Market Square to be well connected into the neighborhood. And we know there is a lot of planning and development and other things in the work all around, and we want to be mindful of that. But we also want Market Square to be a square that stands on its own. And anything else that comes in the area will support it, and we want to be open to it, but we want to have a square that can actually function as a square, no matter what's around it. We want to celebrate the diversity of the city of Richmond, which is really amazing. We want to continue with the special events and festivals that have been so successful, so we're not going to take this away. And that obviously means a certain number of requirements or restrictions for our design and how we do it. We want to attract families and child-friendly uses to this area, obviously feature food, music, public art, have a variety of markets and maybe not just the farmer's market, have different programmings throughout the day, throughout the week, and seasonally. We know it's Richmond, we know you have summer and gets really hot, so we want to think of really hot, we also want to think of winter. And I think there's a lot of examples out there that we can learn from. And really, I think the last but not least, we really want to make this Richmond's living room. First and foremost for the residents of Shockoe Bottom and the nearby neighborhoods, but also for everybody in Richmond. So we want to be inclusive and welcoming to a lot of different people. When we think about active public spaces, we use this concept, we call it the power of 10, and it's really about layering uses and combining uses and building a place into a series of destinations. So when we're thinking about Market Square, we want to have several destinations within Market Square, all with their own activities. And when we say things to do, these things to do can be very simple. It could be just a place to sit. Sitting down is something to do. So it's not all about very active programming. It's really about mixing it up and creating a synergy and building a whole that's bigger than the sum of its parts. I'm going to go very quickly through these qualities of great squares because the sun is going down and we're going to actually go outside with the little form. Each one of you has the little place game form. So we're going to go outside, and I want to do that before it gets completely dark outside. But one of the first things we start off is, how do you actually get to the square, the public space? So traffic, transit, the pedestrians, the bicyclists, how can we connect to adjacent areas well? Have a range of transportation options, which luckily you actually have here. It's quite unusual. You have even a train. Maybe not that many trains come here yet, but they will. So it's a great opportunity, and it's something that you already have, and other public spaces are working very hard to get. So you're way ahead of the game on that one. We want to have active edge uses, because that's what's going to feed our square. And again, there's so many good restaurants already. There's been a lot of discussions about how they can feed the square and kind of participate and be part of it. We want to have good gateways and entrances and very clear arrival points, and really have a place that is identifiable from a distance and we know we've arrived. And that's a little bit of a challenge here, I think, with the highway and a lot of the development that's going on. We need to enhance that sense of arrival. And then within our space, we want to have attractions and destinations, choices of things to do, combining elements that actually make sense together. And just very briefly, this photo is from Bryant Park. I know we're not necessarily building Bryant Park, but we can learn some things from Bryant Park. And this is actually the Bryant Park Carousel, the Bryant Park Reading Room, and the Children's Reading Room. So we have a triangulation or combining of elements, the carousel with kids, reading room with adults, and then reading room for kids, all clustered around the same area, creating synergies. And one of the fun things that actually happens in this space, when they first put in the carousel, it was very controversial because no one saw Bryant Park as a place for children at all. And one of the great things that happened was that mothers would actually bring their kids to the carousel, and their fathers would come down from the office buildings and have lunch together on a weekday. And no one really expected that. So it's now a destination. And you can do that. And you can do it in a lot of different ways. I'm not saying you need a carousel, but this is just an example of something unusual that happens. We want to enhance the identity and the image of the square. Obviously, we want to showcase the history. We want to showcase the neighborhood in general. We want to showcase Richmond. But there are certain special things that can make this square really, really special. And we have a question in our place game that we want to really focus on this. And then we call it start with the petunias, or lighter, quicker, cheaper. We want to think of also ideas for activities, events, programs, some amenities that we can do sooner rather than later. The space is already here. The market is already here. Festivals and events are happening. How can we make those better even in the short term. So whether it's amenities, whether it's special events, or whether it's kind of interim spaces, we want to keep our minds open for that. And of course, art is a great way of doing that. These are some examples of public art that has really changed the nature of the space they were installed in. There's a lot of different ways of doing art. Again, we're not limited to one thing. And this is very quickly an example from something that we did this summer in Detroit. This is downtown Detroit. I know it's like not a great example of a city, but they built the beach on their central square right downtown, and people came, and they put a market right next to it, and it's a food market, and it's a hopping place, and this is lunchtime on a weekday, all the office workers are out. So there is really great potential with small changes to experiment and attract different users to the space. We want to obviously create and offer amenities that attract a cross-section of the users, but also that are comfortable and convenient for differently abled people as well. I know tonight we have a few representatives that are looking for those kind of amenities. We want to obviously be very aware that management is going to be a key to the success of the square, and it's really a key to the success of any public space. And we kind of, really the goal is to build into the district and kind of link into the Shockoe Bottom district, but link into downtown as well. And we call it reach out like an octopus, kind of put some tentacles out and create a series of spaces or a series of places. And finally, last but not least, kind of think of seasonal strategies, whether it's seasonal markets, whether it's seasonal plantings, whether it's different cultural celebrations and so on. And all of these things would help us build a more robust support for the space. Obviously, it's one thing to build a public space, it's quite another to manage it and fund the management of it. And I think sometimes we forget how important that is. So this is an example actually from Pioneer Courthouse Square in Portland. And this is like the diversity of the different funding sources. So we want to make sure that the square has a very diverse funding source, because that's what's going to make it robust. So I'm going to pass the microphone to my colleague Kelly Verrill, and she's going to give you a few more examples and talk about markets.
Thank you. Oh, let me get the all-important clicker. One of the characteristics of the market square as it is right now is that it's actually quite inflexible. It's pretty stuck in its ways, and some would say, because of the physical shed that exists there right now. So there's not a lot that can really be done other than to kind of work with that shed as it is. As we start thinking about the programming and the design of the future of the market square, what we want to definitely bring into it is more flexibility, more ability to have different kinds of activities going on throughout the day. I just want to use as an example of that flexibility the Campo de Fiori in Rome, which really transforms itself through the day and attracts a variety of different users depending on what's going on. In the morning, almost regularly, almost daily, the market sets up. It's a produce market, full scale. It basically takes over the entire square. But everything, I've been there watching them, and they have these little trucks that they pull up with all the produce, and the stands magically fit like around the little truck. And at the end of the, towards afternoon, the market shuts down, and you can see they're taking the market down up here, and it disappears. And then you have the afternoon where you start to see some of the flower vendors come out, some of the restaurants then spill out the tables and chairs. People can drive their bikes right through it. So what was once a full market square, several hours later, is now a piazza for people to enjoy during the day. And then in the evening, it becomes an incredibly popular place for people to go, and sometimes they even put up movie screens such as this and have movies in the piazza. So it's really encouraging people to use this space how they would like to use it differently throughout the day. getting to that is the concept of markets. We heard from several people about the different markets that have been popping up throughout the region and the success of those. And we know that this is a historic market square. This is where typically the cities are started at the market space, and we know that that is important in this city. We also know that when you build in flexibility, you can build in a variety of different types of markets. So I want to walk through quickly the different types of markets that potentially could happen here. The first would be the holiday market. This is Bryant Park again. These look permanent, but they're actually temporary. They go up for about a month, 6 weeks, and they have the amenities, utilities for small-scale vendors to set up, crafts, vintage, food. There's some prepared foods, and of course they have the ice skating rink right nearby and the tree, and it all becomes like a winter wonderland. And of course, this is modeled on the Northern European winter holiday markets we see here in Vienna. And these are very temporary, and they have a little bit of a gateway going on here. You can see it from a distance and tell that it's a holiday market, but it all can disappear at the beginning of the next year. Night markets. These are becoming actually quite popular. Traditionally, we see a lot of them in Asia, but more and more I'm hearing about night markets starting up. In New York, there's a farmers market network that's been experimenting actually with night markets and doing one per season in a different location. And you can really make these more fun. They can have fresh foods, they can have crafts and vintage and flea items. Obviously they would probably have a lot of prepared foods, but you can really bring the other elements in, such as DJs, dancing. This market here has food trucks, and you can really kind of set up a real festive atmosphere. Of course, there's a variety of different products. It's not always just about food. There's books, used, new books. There's, of course, crafts. This is a popular market started about 5 years ago in Brooklyn called the Brooklyn Flea. It's now opened up in Philadelphia, and I believe last weekend or the weekend before, DC Outpost just opened. But they have really honed in on this idea of sort of upscale crafts, and flea not really meaning tube socks so much as silkscreen t-shirts and vintage furniture and jewelry and clothing. But what really made this market explode was the prepared foods, which you can see. They kind of cluster them along this edge here. There's some steps behind this that people sort of just naturally use as the place to sit and eat. And people love to come and have breakfast and have lunch and just gather, and that food is what brings people back every week. They'll definitely shop at the other vendors, but it's that kind of excitement of what they could get, what fancy artisanal donut they could have, that has really made this market incredibly popular. We were working with the Discovery Green Parks folks from Houston, Texas. They had started, when they opened this park, which is a beautiful urban park, they opened a farmer's market, but they don't have any real residential around them, and the residential they have tends to be a little bit younger, a little more affluent, not really cooking so much. So the market was not successful. They came up to New York, they visited the Brooklyn Flea, and they decided to experiment with the outpost of that called Discovery Green Flea. They now have been incredibly successful. They only do this once a month, so it kind of shows you that markets don't have to be, super intensive in terms of every day or every week. This is one Saturday a month. In the beginning, they experimented with just 4 in the fall to see how successful it was. It was during the day on a Saturday. They had music, crafts, food. They had bicycle repair, which I thought was kind of fun. And then when it got really hot in the middle of the summer, they realized that it wouldn't work in the middle of the day. So they moved it to a Saturday evening, kind of turned it into a night market, and it was doubly popular. So last I spoke to them, they had gone back to the daytime for part of the year, but they were thinking about moving it entirely to the evening. The Brooklyn Flea that I mentioned earlier, their prepared foods, that was who was really coming to them the most to get in, the vendors, and so they decided to branch off and start an entirely prepared food market. They call it Smorgasburg. It's in a neighborhood called Williamsburg. So it's the Smorgasburg. It then expanded. It's Saturday in Williamsburg, and then it's Sunday near the Brooklyn Bridge over here. So they have 2 of these now. They have about 50 to 60 of these prepared food vendors, and people come and they eat and they enjoy the scenery and spend time, and they're incredibly successful. Oops. I wanted to show you a little bit of that indoor-outdoor. This is in Amsterdam, and this is, again, about once a month this market operates. It's using the indoor space really nicely. It's still incredibly temporary. Once you go indoors with markets, you tend to magnify your risk and magnify your investment. So they're doing a really good job of just sort of experimenting with some space and using an indoor space, but in a temporary way. But it spills out, as you can see. There's tables set up. It's all prepared foods. They also accept food, so they do sort of like a food pantry collection, and it's very sustainable. They ask people to bring their own utensils and plates so that they don't have as much waste, which is kind of neat and very European. And I know this is a neighbor to your north, Washington, D.C. To kind of build off of some of what Lena was talking about reaching out, the octopus, creating that 10 places. Eastern Market's just a really good example of a small market district where you can have an indoor market here with a craft market across the street, prepared foods nearby, restaurants and food shops that are operating independently but still are building off of each other. Of course, the flea market down here, and then a shed with an open air market. So just having that synergy of all of those working together and thinking about that this evening. Just a photograph of Eastern Market, probably many of you have been there, the indoor market here. And when this market suffered from the fire, frankly, it was one of the probably better things that happened to it, because it gave the city impetus to invest in the inside. And then also this was a regular paved street, which then they put these nice pavers down, which kind of created more of a plaza feel for the open air market. But when the market's not there, this goes back to being a street and cars can drive over. So I'll hand it back to Elena.
Well, I think we're running out of light, so I'm gonna actually skip some of this right now because I want to catch the daylight. I'm gonna show you just this very quick case study. This is a market square in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania that we worked on. It's a very simple space, but you can see how it evolved from like a real market hall into these like 4 basically pieces of grass with a lot of parking around them. Then it became kind of a street, and its new iteration is really being a market again. And these are some of our thoughts about how it could operate. We even developed some diagrams and ideas of what it could do at night. The reason I wanted to show it to you is first because it's had a tremendous impact on the entire area around, and it spurred an incredible amount of development and attention. And also because the people who run that market actually take a lot of care and talk to people a lot, and they run a lot of surveys. So this survey actually shows you how the perception of the market changed in just really 4 years. So the question, they interviewed people on the street and they asked them, when I say Market Square, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? So in 2006, the first thing was homelessness, riffraff, dirty, drugs, and drug dealers. In 2008, people were saying restaurants, pigeons, homeless people were kind of like number 3 on that list, lots of people. In 2010, after the square renovation, the first thing that people said was lunch, food, improvement, renovation, construction, peaceful place to relax. So renovating the square gives you a tremendous opportunity to turn its image completely around. Now we're gonna go on to what we're actually gonna do tonight. We call this the place game. And here's the highlights from the focus groups again. We're not gonna go over them again. So we're gonna start with axes and linkages. Is the market visible? The square, is it connected? Is it convenient? Can you actually walk there? What if you're in a wheelchair? What if you're impaired in some other way, like visually impaired, or if you have hearing disabilities? What is that experience like? How is the crossing the street and connecting into the train station, connecting into the bus stop? What is that experience like? Can we actually create a street there that could be used for cars at certain times of the day, and it could be pedestrian and have activity in it at other times of the day? Obviously in Europe they do this a lot. How is it for bicycles? We know there is big plans for a multimodal center nearby. What is the experience of riding there right now? Is there a place to leave your bike? Is there a bike rack? And then finally, information. Do we know where we are? Is there any signage? How do people get around? I mean, obviously people in Richmond know the place fairly well, but for people who are arriving in the train station or at the bus station, what is that experience like? Uses and activities. How do we make this square fun and active and local and affordable and really the place where everybody wants to be? So there was a lot of conversations about the restaurants and restaurant terraces. So I've thrown in a few images showing different ways of doing restaurant terraces. So when we're thinking restaurants, it doesn't mean that the restaurants need to take the entire square. It could be something more contained, like this example. This is actually in Tallinn, Estonia, and it's in a very medieval square. So a lot of the buildings there are like from the 16th century, and they do these little terraces. Or you could really do something very simple and kind of rope them off depending on what people are selling. So there is many different ways of doing a terrace. It doesn't have to be, you know, taking a lot of space. And there's different ways of offering food. It could be something simple, it could be juice, it could be coffee. There were discussions about that. We talked about flower market and offering different possibilities for people to buy things that they need. But it's also about programming on a regular basis. We know you have fabulous festivals in the square, but what happens there on a daily basis? Is there Wi-Fi? Is there music? This is in New York City. There is a piano in a public space kind of program, and they bring these pianos and they just leave them out, and people would sit and play, and sometimes they're wonderful players and other times it hurts, but it's a fun thing to do. Games, is there opportunity and need for that? Organized classes and events, art and art exhibits, music, buskers, is that appropriate? I don't know, is that a place to do something like that? And as you can see, there's different ways of doing buskers. It could be classical music, or it could be something more contemporary. And we also wanted to think of the use of the alley. So one of the groups tonight is gonna take a look also at Walnut Alley. So how can we make that into a usable public space? And what can we do there? So this example is of an alley that actually is lined with art workshops, and you can have coffee and drinks outside, but you can also go and watch people blow glass, for example. So there is a lot of opportunities for that. And then your wonderful festival. More, less of them, what kind? Are there specific festivals you want to see more of? How big should they be? All of these things should come in the mix tonight as you think of the ideas for the square and the area you've been assigned for the square. And then of course we want to think about comfort and making the square attractive and green and historic and people and children friendly and senior friendly and friendly to disabled people. So all of these things can come in the mix to make actually this into an attractive square. So this is a square actually in Sweden, but the reason I picked it is because area-wise, it's not very different. The acreage is very similar, and it has like a focal point, and it's water, and it's lined with cafes, but there is an open public area in the middle. There's public benches, so seating is not just for people who can pay. This is an example from Bryant Park. It's the Southwest Lounge, so there's different ways of doing seating, and this one is actually open to the public, but it has a table service as well. They also have fire pits in the winter. Again, it's very controlled, and they have someone managing it and taking care of it. Activities for kids and things that attract kids. There is obviously your standard playground, but what about interactive art? What about art that is actually people-friendly and is also usable? Water, we've talked a lot about water, so different ways of doing water that is, again, people-friendly and child-friendly, and whether it's a splash pad or something more substantial. And then evening uses and what we can do in the evening, and I guess you're gonna get to do a lot of the evaluation in sort of twilight, so you should think of that and how well lit the space is and how it could be better lit. And then think of seasonal uses and options to make it actually beautiful and well lit for different seasons and holidays. And finally, how do we make it welcoming and how do we make this the square that everybody in Richmond feels they belong to? And that's, I think, the hardest things to do. Can we actually create a space where seniors will sit down and hold hands and where married couples will take their wedding photos? That's kind of the ultimate goal, to attract people and make them happy. So what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna break into 5 teams. Look at your name tag, and there should be a number on your name tag. So the number on your name tag corresponds to the number of the group you're gonna be in. And what we're gonna do is group number 1 is gonna evaluate Main Street and kind of the access into the square, the gateway into the square from Main Street. But we're also going to take a look at the connection to the train station and the connection into the bus stop plaza. So this kind of area, group 1 is going to evaluate that. And I'm actually going to be your facilitator. I'm going to come out with you, and I'm going to be right here in this corner, and I'm going to wave the number 1 sign. So we're going to meet here, group 1. We're going to look at Main Street and kind of the entry into Market Square. Group 2 is going to look at the core of Market Square, south, I guess, of Walnut Alley. And I'm going to tell you in a minute. Your facilitators are going to be Toby and John, and they are right there. John and Toby are going to be with you, and they're going to help you with any questions. Group number 3 is going to look at the center of the square, but you're also going to take a look at Walnut Alley. And your facilitator is, where's your facilitator? It's going to be Bert. He's right here, group number 3. Group number 4 is going to look at the kind of northern, is that northwest? I don't know, northern portion of the square. And your facilitator is going to be Mary. She's back there. She's waving a number 4. And group number 5 is going to look at Franklin Street, that entry into the square, and kind of the connection into the train station and the train shed. There is a lot of things that are going to potentially be happening in that area. So, keep your mind open. And your facilitator is going to be Kelly, group number 5. So all of you have a form, the place game form. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to go with your group, with your facilitator, and walk your site for just like 5 to 10 minutes most. And then all of you are invited to write any comments on the form. But we're really filling one form as a group. So we want to have a discussion as a group, decide what's the most appropriate rating, and then come back here at around 7:30. All right, wow.
We lost a lot of shops in this area and having to go and come back. It's better now. I was in the last 3 years of kind of filled up.
So why don't we break the situation now and put a note about how it used to be more vital and it's gone down, and now you feel it's on the ups.
I think it's trying to come back.
It's trying to come back.
So, like in Los Angeles, they built this beautiful, in Silver Lake, a beautiful park, but they don't allow pets in it. It's called a barefoot lawn. So that people can go have picnics, their kids can run around, and then on the other side of the park, they have a huge dog park that's fenced in, but
Comfort of places to sit.
one.
You said 0.
That was easy.
That was a resounding 1. Okay, great. So how do you feel about these structures? Would you get rid of them, keep them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep one at each end.
Existing ideas to get rid of them, but you know.
Yeah, border one at each end.
No, I've
Take
never
a-
noticed that bell over there too. I don't know if that's.
We just said that all the
Yeah,
years
that
I've
might
come
be
down here, I've
historic.
never noticed that bell.
That is the
What is it?
That is the
Yeah.
original bell at the farmers market.
In places like Mexico City, that kind of alley would be perfect for book stalls and antiques vendors and, you know, little vendors all along there. It's also a place where there's a lot of murals and public art events, and that I think the public art aspect is a good one.
So from, you know, getting where we were to getting here, how was that? Was that like poor?
I used to walk here from Church Hill once a week down the hill.
Yeah.
And the hill at that time, this was about 5 years ago, but it was trash, it smelled like urine, it was broken bottles coming up and down Church Hill, which I think is a main draw for the area.
So we feel
I
like
agree with you.
But before we start the report backs, I just wanted to go back into our process and just reassure you that we are going to take all of these ideas. We have lots and lots of notes, and we're going to try to synthesize them and then share them with Jeannie and Bert and his team. So before any design starts, we're actually going to try to have a really good program of ideas for this space. And we're going to come back at some point in about a month and a half, 2 months with some ideas for the program. So it's not going to be a drawing, it's going to be more like a bubble diagram with all the possible things that we can do. And I am going to ask my reporter here, Josh, for group 1 to come and report. All right.
So I guess starting off with number 1, list at least 10 activities we'd like to be able to do in this space. Well, on our group, we came to the conclusion that we'd like to sit and read, eat outside, shop for trinkets. We gave the example of Union Square. One of the examples of the holiday markets, we can get unique, one-of-a-kind things, shop culture. It was mentioned that 18th Street has this culture, but they're potentially moving that into the market. Look at something cool. Art and landscape interact with art, connect to the river, bike trails, ice skating in the square. The idea of the Porch of Philadelphia, which is right next to the train station, that allows people that are walking and traversing the streets to kind of come and sit down. These chairs are provided, and games and read also. So that's one thing that we'd like to see here. And another thing is kids activities. Moving on to the next. This is 5.
That's the character.
So, one of these features would enhance the character is that stadium seating and platform, I guess for for theater. We have performances potentially by theater kids from VCU, so things like that. Number 4, what should the character of the square be in the future? We'd like it to be open, interactive, welcoming. We need a green space. We'd like to create a green area, something that leads to the river, and good trail signage, along potentially daylighting shop for free, tying that into a green space that maybe people waiting on the bus could utilize, and I guess the signage that would allow people on the bus to see that we do have restaurants and whatnot on 17th Street. Okay, another thing we said were green walkways, trees, something baskets, flower baskets. Flower baskets to create a nice, attractive area, right, for like an alley of trees down. Right. So baskets being on poles, nice and happy. Next one. Okay, continuing, create an alley, vegetation, green buffers on sidewalks. Great. Okay, so this. Number 2, so who else should be attracted to use this space, i.e. teens, mothers, seniors, artists, etc. Focus on residents and office workers and visitors, kind of our city type of deal. We need visibility for restaurants and signage, such as for those waiting at a bus. Connect destinations through signage and outdoor terraces. Going back to 4, character. music history and the river. Because what we have here is an urban space with three edges or walls of the living room of Richmond, Main Street and 17th Street. We're going to 6, day in the life. You give it 8, you have more, you have your morning, your routine, there's a coffee bakery stand, maybe some Tai Chi, early produce market and restaurants at 6. Okay, so the chefs and stuff of the local restaurants, we look good at the produce market stands out front of the restaurants and source all their ingredients that day for their meals. And then that would close at 11, which would give way for an urban park entrance. No. We would have an urban park entrance, and benches and Wi-Fi for meeting tables. So yes, corporation companies can come and have meetings on the plaza with internet access. Enjoy that space. And then at 10, we have storytelling for preschool kids. At 11, again, continuing with the events and programs for kids, maybe by the Children's Museum, around noon, maybe outdoor dining, and, like Charlottesville with music, and samba and other bands, and afternoon music and coffee, New Orleans style bands, and buskers, so street performers. And 5, so happy hour crowd, we have wine and beer tastings, happy hour, and continue that into outdoor movie at 8. Additionally, we have live theater, street performances such as music students and VC students, market, and then late night potential light shows, summer concerts, and late night street food. That's it. Thank
So we had a lot of the same or similar ideas as group number 1. I'm sure probably all have a lot of similar ideas. So from a number basis, our median was about 2, somewhere between 1 and 2. The highest rated scores were the frequency of community events and the number of people traveling in groups. So to go over the questions, 10 activities we'd like to see or be able to do. Relax, eat, public Wi-Fi, and an informal meeting space. Be able to people watch, shop local retail, and be able to learn potential gardening space, and maybe a play or kid structure to be able to look around on and bring more families down there. Number 2, who else should be attracted to using space? Basically all of the above that were listed, and then an emphasis on all the local artists and people who love food, educators, chefs, and also the travelers that will be coming to the train station and bus. So number 3, what programs and activities would attract these user groups here? Live or background music, just sound in general going on down there to create some energy. Recurring events and festivals, and recurring educational events such as gardening or cooking, things like that. Number 4, what should the character describe be in the future? Interactive is the word, the buzzword that kept coming up for us. Integrating the history as well as some of the modern stuff or contemporary things that are going on. Also, this is something that I wrote down in our conversation downstairs, was sort of energetic when in use and beautiful and clean when not. So it's nice to look at, but also might have an energy carrying throughout. Number 5, what amenities and features would enhance that character? We had a lot. Places to sit, water features such as fountains, or even just being able to get a drink of water. Open and updated structure, so less of a pagoda feel and maybe more of a wide open space. An information kiosk, so people can get more information about where they are and where they want to go in the area. Sound and speakers, again, creates some energy. Trees and greenery being super important. And mobile or flexible furniture. The point was brought up, people like to kind of map their territory so they can move a chair or be able to flexibly sit. That's not very good with that. And then also historical and directional signage. So again, letting people know about the history of the area, letting people know where things are going, what's going on, and how to get there. Number 6 is describe daily life. So ours, basically, we kind of brought up a lot of points, starting in the morning, being a place to stop between home and work, being able to get some coffee or pastry, and being a consistent place to stop for food and drink. So throughout the entire day, there's some form of food trucks, obviously local produce vendors, things like that. So maybe mid-morning throughout the day, there are people busking, there are public yoga, dance, theater classes going on. Being able to meet up, being a meetup spot for just about everyone. So if you're a cyclist and you want to get people together to go for a ride, you can meet there. If you are organizing a volunteer function, you can have everyone meet there. It sort of means east west for in town. And then moving into the afternoon, evening, definitely a place to have an awesome happy hour. Be outside, potentially have some controlled open container spaces. And then also a place to have to host speakers, let people have a soapbox, and then moving into a nighttime routine that would bring more family and all age groups down. So things like movie nights, live bands, light shows, potential theater, and definitely lawn games, ping pong, all the public activities that they should during the initial slideshow. And then number 7. Local partnerships or local talent, can you identify it? We have a lot. Art 180, Palm Market, Arts, any local musicians and artists, Center Stage, Repertory Theater, Triangle Players, Hands-On, Festival Gardens, any and all of the UCU community, school arts, architecture, and also University of Richmond. And and then we also brought up just some extra points about the 1% public art grant that's going on. We believe there's some potential money there to be from public art and things like that. Definitely the need for known gateways, so exits and entrances. Right now, there's no real welcoming entrance. And also just signage all around the area to direct people here and around. And then definitely marketing ideas and branding, so getting the word out for an online digital platform, things like that, Twitter, Facebook. And then developing developing a brand around it, having it be recognizable all across, things that could be on buses and billboards and other ways to get the word out. And wrote down the importance of market management and sound funding. So I wrote that down. Definitely the importance for bike racks and places to park your non-cars, and also to coordinate with the Shotgun Pathway and potential stadium, definitely making people, again, directionally aware that it's there, because it's not super visible from some of the other places around. So, those were my answers.
I'm number 3, and I would really appreciate at least 4 minutes. And there is a lot of stuff that already has been mentioned.
So I do appreciate many of you going first and kind of fleshing out maybe the organizations that could be used in partnership. Oh, I didn't go over that. Instead, we have the alley and the central area of the market. Some of the things that we thought about is specifically with the alley, it's a very small space, it's a very confined space, and working within that space, we wanted to have it be a very versatile space. In the morning, that's where businesses would have any type of deliveries that they would not be able to get across the street or within walking distance. Any type of trash pickup or waste management would be taken care of at early morning. This is specifically critical because one of the things that to make that alleyway an inviting space, or at least a space where people could take care of other activities, we wanted to eliminate or at least greatly reduce vehicular traffic from the hours of 9 a.m. until 3 a.m. So all the service loading, all of the waste management would take place during those 6 hours. Any type of cleanup that would be initiated by the Market Square management team could be done during those 6 hours as well. So the other things that we looked at for the remaining 18 hours in terms of options would be having small cart vendors line one side of the alley so that you would have booths. We looked at creating micro environments, for example, having small cafe tables and chairs on each end of it where there are restaurants that can utilize that space, doing a barn door type commerce with back doors of restaurants and vending food that way in the alley. We also looked at specifically doing art installations on temporary flat structures or working with the building owners of those locations to do art installations on their buildings in the alleyway. Very, very aesthetically pleasing environment. Lighting was a concern that we had as we walked through the dark, and we looked at doing almost like two-stage lighting, and that we would do lighting camping across to create kind of almost a tunnel effect, and also general, almost like Italian lighting that you would see, for example, in Chicago, the historical lamp lights. In terms of green space for the alley, we're very limited in what we can do. It would likely be centered around any other type of permanent structures. These permanent structures we want to keep to a minimum so that we give that flexibility to the vendors, to other groups who wish to utilize that space. If you look on the little pamphlet, the last thing I'll touch on is we also had the very center of Market Square. That area we wanted to keep free from permanent structure in many ways so that we can also enable many of your ideas to come to fruition. If you want to have a large festival, you wouldn't be encumbered by a fountain or a statue in the middle. You can then have a very large space that can be very mobile. That's not to say that things can't happen, but that they would not be permanently raised structures, such as fountains that are sunk into the ground, small water change fountains type things that can be walked over without creating hazard. And last, it did come up in discussion of restricting vehicular traffic not only to the alley, but also to 17th Street South, which is only one lane with one parking. 17th Street northbound is almost 3 cars wide and could accommodate traffic, at least for the initial days of transition.
Okay, great.
So again, not to repeat everything that's been said, our group looked at the back end of the market, which from our observation was somewhat neglected compared to the other side, both inside the physical market space and also the businesses that were on those streets around it. That kind of factored into how we rated everything. Everything was more or less more stores, obviously Placemaking for improvement. What we came up with that hasn't been mentioned but maybe not emphasized is the dual use of who will be using this. Yes, people will be coming here to look for services or activities, but how do we actually, without creating some really huge and hard to manage central organizing agency to schedule all of that, how do we make it so different businesses, organizations can quickly and effectively kind of plug and play and use the space that's available? Who are these organizations going to be? They've all been mentioned already. That's what we really need to, that's what we discussed as being really important, is making all of those access opportunities available. Whether it's yoga, whether it's gardening, whether it's educational, whether it's leisure, recreation, that doesn't matter as much as there being a way to have those people who offer that into the space, not just people looking for those things. You can't really go somewhere and shop if there's no stores. You can't go somewhere and learn if there's no artistic and interactive educational spaces that everyone could use, and there could be a great degree of community in the sense of safety, yes, and community, yes, but also something that you can walk away with, tell a story, and want to go back there again later on. We came up with tons and tons of specific events. I think they have really been hit on already, so we won't really go into them. Anything else that we should bring up? Yeah. 2 minutes.
You were great. Fastest
Hi, I'm representing Route 5. We're the area at the northeast part of the market. We noticed a couple of important things when we went out there. First of all, several streets converge there, and it's really kind of a nightmare. One-way traffic, two-way traffic. Franklin Street would be a great opportunity, but it needs to be opened up all the way further west. And it's an area, in a way, that is the rear of the market, front being down here on Main Street. But actually, it's the largest open area in the market, and yet we found the trash cans there, we found more traffic and congestion. So that's an area that really needs to be sorted out in terms of different modes of transportation, and making it more of a focal point for larger public events. We looked at activities, and a lot of what you all spoke of. We identified biking, shopping, sitting, watching, arts groups, gazebos, holiday events, people watching, eating, of course. The users, state workers who are down here just for the daytime, and then come down in the morning, lunch, evening, Wi-Fi, tourists, residents, families and children, suburbanites, market vendors, capital trail users, entertainers, students, riverfront users, everyone, diversity, and travelers. We were talking about programs and activities. Of course, focus on special events. There may be a stadium there, so we can't ignore that. Shopping, games, leisure activities, food, parks, stalls, a variety of markets, some kind of welcome center, someplace where tours will originate, and then a place where you can rent bikes and segways. And just basically, since it was the kind of birthplace of the city, let that be where people start to explore Richmond. Wi-Fi, skateboards, water features, daylight Chaco Creek. Character, urban with lots of activities. We want it open and spacious. We want more sheep. I don't mean we want, but we suggest more trees, more shade, greener, emphasize its historic character. In ways, it isn't a huge space, so maybe more concentrated, compact, intimate, a gateway, have transportation-related activities with people changing modes, bright, have lights, distinctive decorative lighting, and sparkle lights at night. Plenty of shade down there, connected to the neighborhood and other hubs. Encourage people to explore and emphasize the 21st century character. Green roofs, solar, maybe daylighting. Amenities with some kind of arch or gateway, stage or performance areas, bike parking, trees, seating, bathroom, oculus to see the creek, tents and shade cloths, ambassadors and volunteers, kiosks and wayfinding information, seating with Wi-Fi and real tables, our plug-ins, art activities, lessons and classes, and solar compacting and trash cans. A day in life, pretty much the same. Get up, get your coffee, fresh vegetables and bakeries, capture early workers for meetings and meet up, transition into lunch with smells of cooking, restaurants with girls outside, cards, entertainment, shuttle to collect workers and bring them down there. Post-work would be happy hour, and we said car free, and the area needs to work out when deliveries are made and then close the area to most vehicles so people can use it. And then later, dining, entertainment, dancing, music, and maybe baseball. So that's good fun.
And any notes you want to share?